A perfectly iced cake in 10 minutes? Yes, please, because who has time? Not I. And now you can save time in your cake business too. Welcome to the Station Bakery. This is the quickest way to stack, fill, and ice a cake. I will be using chocolate cake layers filled with my cookies and cream dream cream and wrapped in vanilla dream cream buttercream. This will all be done in real time so you can see that it's real. This year in my caking journey, I have been challenging myself to learn the best and quickest ways to run my cake business, and by golly, I figured it out. If you're a baker, you know just how much time it takes to get perfectly iced cakes that are ready to be decorated and dressed to the nines. And if you're a business owner, you know that time is money, and that time is precious. Yeah, you can spend hours icing and decorating cakes if that's your thing. But if you're like me, then you're trying to figure out how to make the most money by doing less. And this method for icing a cake achieves just that. The key in icing a cake quickly is moving quickly and finding ways to cut down the work time without sacrificing the quality or stability of the cake. By having a standard to the way I move, I am able to basically have muscle memory that allows me to breeze through stacking and filling my cakes. But here's where the real secret lies. We are taught when starting out decorating cakes that you stack, fill, add a crumb coat, and then the final coat to the cake. This is great advice as the crumb coat holds in the crumbs of the cake so they don't get on the outside, and it gives you a great working base to jazz it up in the decorating process. However, I'm big on expanding your knowledge and dipping into other industries to see what skills can be applied to our cakes. But I didn't have to go far to find this gem of a technique. Storefront bakeries are all about time and speed, which means they train their bakers and decorators to be efficient and push out the most products as quickly as possible. So enter in skipping the crumb coat. Skipping the crumb coat saves so much time in the decorating process by removing the crumb coat in chill time before being able to add your final coat. By skipping the crumb coat and jumping straight into the final coat, you're giving yourself a major boost to the finish line. But here's the trick. For this to work, you must always remember to never touch the cake. I find using a piping bag to coat the cake is the best way to achieve this. This is also the quickest way to get the icing onto the cake, saving you even more time. But if you want to go even faster, look into getting a Wilton tip number 789. It covers more surface area, making the icing process even quicker. So, working on chill cakes makes the process easier as it gives the cake and buttercream more stability while icing your cake so it doesn't slip and slide. It also lessens the chance of crumbs falling off of your cake. So using a piping bag, simply wrap the cake in the buttercream, double checking often to make sure there are no crumbs. If there are, stop and remove them before continuing. This is crucial to avoid crumbs and flecks on your final coat. When removing any crumbs, choose a tool that has not been used and won't be used again on the cake to avoid crumb cross-contamination. And be careful not to dig too deeply into the cake or smear any crumbs. This will cause for a bigger mess to clean up. And always remember, do not touch the cake. Pipe the buttercream onto the cake as closely as possible, trying not to leave any open spaces. Again, the trick is to not have your tools touch the cake ever so you don't accidentally pull any crumbs onto the outside of the cake. That means when piping the buttercream, keep your bag close enough for the buttercream to get on the cake, but not too close that it digs into the cake and pulls up crumbs. Here are a few things that can make this process a bit easier. One is having a working turntable. This makes wrapping the cake and icing a smoother process. Another tip is the larger the hole you cut into the piping bag, the more of the cake you can cover, meaning you're spending less time icing the cake. This is why the Wilton tip number 789 is such a good tip. It could possibly cover this cake in only 4 turns instead of the 10 I had to do. Also, keeping air bubbles out of your piping bag helps you avoid having to start and stop over and over again like I had to do. Now, I wouldn't say the type of buttercream you use matters because you can get great results from any buttercream as long as you know how to work with it. However, some buttercreams, like my dream creams, are just easier to learn because they are lighter, smoother, and easier to maneuver. Thicker buttercreams have a higher risk of either not sticking to the cake or being too thick that it pulls chunks of your cake away. But again, it's all in knowing how to work the buttercream you choose. And if you're interested, of course you can find my buttercream recipes at thestationbakery.com. I will have this linked down in the description and in the comments. Fill in any spaces and gaps that you might have missed, then start working on the top of the cake before moving to the sides. You want to hold the same principles when working on the top of the cake of not touching and not leaving any gaps. Smooth out the buttercream using an offset spatula, pushing the buttercream around to cover the top of the cake until smooth. Once wrapped in buttercream, use your scraper to simply smooth and fill in the spaces on your cake. Don't dig too deeply into the buttercream as you risk pulling up crumbs. I find layering a thicker than actually necessary layer of buttercream helps cushion the wiggle room to scrape away as much buttercream as needed to get smooth and perfect sides. After scraping, use your piping bag or your offset spatula to fill in any imperfections and re-smooth until you are happy with the results. Repeat this as necessary. I have been able to improve my cake decorating time significantly using this method, but there is still some room for me to learn and cut my time even more. I feel like even though I'm moving faster than before, I can still cut even more time. Sometimes when I keep trying to correct one teensy spot, I end up making an even bigger imperfection. Anyone else relate to that? It's all about understanding the fine line between perfection and just vainly wasting time. I could have saved myself a good couple of minutes if I had just taken a deep breath, walked away, and moved on. But here I am, and I'm still learning. And while we wait for me to smooth this cake to perfection, let me give you a few more helpful tips. The way you hold your scraper matters. If you angle your scraper closer to the cake, you will smooth and spread the buttercream without removing much. If you angle your scraper in a wider angle, it will scrape and remove the buttercream. It's good to know these angles to help you achieve your desired outcome. And lastly, I find the slower I move my scraper, the smoother the finish becomes versus scraping really quickly. After my sides were coated and smoothed, I placed my cake in the fridge to firm up. This is to prepare to get those super crisp edges. However, if you're looking to save a bit more time, simply use your offset spatula to pull the top buttercream towards the middle of the cake to create even edges. This method works really well, but I find I get a more even and crisp definition when I chill the cake, so that's not a step I'm ready to give up just yet. Now that the cake is chilled, we can use our offset spatula to cut away the jagged edges. You can heat the spatula to make it easier, but I prefer not to because it can cause the buttercream to melt and stick and pull. But find what works best for you. I clean up any last minute touches, and now this cake is ready to be dressed and decorated. Like this video if you found this helpful, and if you want to see how this cake turns out in the end, be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss it. And until next time, peace.